Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started on another edition of Free Training Thursday. Just by show of hands real quick, if you could click that little hand raising button just to let me know that you can hear me okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to go ahead and put your hands down. And I'll assume, since I'm looking at the audience view, that you can see my screen okay as well. If for some reason you can't see my screen, please utilize the chat box there and let me know. You should see the Abacus Maximus advertisement here on my desktop. And as far as questions go, make sure you use your questions pane or the chat box there in the GoToMeeting window. You'll notice that you're muted. That's by design. We don't want people talking over each other. So please utilize that questions box, utilize that chat pane for any questions that you have. And I will do my best to answer them in the time allotted. If I don't answer your question, do not be alarmed. We keep track of all questions, and it usually just means that I'm going to follow up with you offline, either by email or by a phone call. But don't hesitate to ask questions. Nothing is off limits. You can ask me anything. Today we are going to be talking about customizing screens in AbacusLaw. My name is Scott Heiss. I see a lot of familiar names out there in the crowd. I think I've trained quite a few of you. I'm a senior trainer here at Abacus Next, and customizing screens in AbacusLaw is actually one of my favorite topics because once you learn how to do this, you're really taking control of your program for all that it's worth. That's what you're doing. You're taking the program and you are manipulating the screens to be in line with your exact practice areas and your exact protocols for like new case creation and, you know, what type of fields you want to report on and filter on and all that good stuff. So learning how to do this is a great skill. All right. So hopefully we can get you down the right path on that today. Before we dive into the program, Abacus Maximus, our user conference that we do every year. Last year we had an absolutely amazing turnout in Las Vegas. We're hoping to see all of you there again this year. It's going to be at Caesars Palace, June 24th through the 25th. Please come join us. We'd love to see you. You can go to AbacusMaximus.com to get all of the information and purchase all your tickets and all that good stuff. We've got some great keynote speakers this year that I am very excited about. I'm going to try and meet every one of them if I'm not too busy. And of course, you get to meet us. We get to put names to faces and all that good stuff, and we can hang out and we can talk shop. So we'll go ahead and we'll dive right into the program now. I'm going to go ahead and open up my AbacusLaw system. Okay, we're going to start here on our main menu. Now, when it comes to customizing screens, usually what people are focused on are fields, okay? Like what fields show on my name screens, what fields show on my matter screens, and things like that, right? Not all screens are created equal, right? If I open up my matters database and I open up a divorce case, my divorce screen has fields on it specific to a divorce, right? That makes sense. I've got marriage info, separation info, divorce information. I've got a tab here for custody information with a bunch of different drop-down menus and text fields, right? So my divorce screen is geared towards divorces, whereas my personal injury screen may be a little bit different. Well, it is a little bit different. Not maybe, it is, right? Because personal injury screens are going to have things like accident information, settlement information, maybe some additional tabs for insurance information and wage loss, medical expenses, different things like that, settlement specific information like demand letters and counteroffers and all that. So really the object of the game is to tweak your program so that it aligns with your practice areas. Now, don't forget, we do sell pre-customized packages for your AbacusLaw program. So if you don't feel like taking the time to customize everything the way you need it, if you want to pay the extra $20 a month to have the personal injury specialty version that comes pre-customized, maybe that's the route you want to take. It's up to you. If that's the case, make sure you contact Abacus and ask about that. Ask about information, the pricing on that and what different, customized packages we offer. But, in the end, it's always good, to know how to do things yourself in case you just want to make little tweaks. Like I can change my oil. I take it to the dealership, whenever I have to have them do it. But, if I got to do it, I can do it. I know how, right? Same thing here with our customizing. So when we're thinking about customizing screens, we have to start with the question of what we're wanting to customize. Are we wanting to add a field, maybe some sort of specialty field to our matter screens or to our name screens? Because the first thing we need to find out is, does that field even exist in our database structures? Okay, every field that you see on my screen, it exists inside of my database. Okay, it's in there, it's living, it's breathing. That's how I'm able to add it to my screen. Okay, so if you're thinking to yourself, man, I really wish I had a field in my on my name screen for client shoe size, right? If you've ever done a training with me, I use that example a lot. Sorry to be redundant. But client shoe size is a pretty wacky field. That isn't something that would obviously come with your program, right? So if we look at a name screen for one of our clients here, we don't have a field for shoe size. That'd be crazy, but I'm just using this as an example. So first thing you got to ask yourself is, the field that I'm wanting to add to my screen, does that even exist in my database structure? The way you find out is by going into your database structures and taking a look. All right, so if I go to File, Setup, and then I go about halfway down, I'm going to see Database Structures as an option in my Setup menu. Okay, now I will tell you, this is an administrative function. So if you get to this step and Database Structures is grayed out, that means that your security profile in the program does not allow you to update database structures. So that's a no-no for you. You'll need to contact your administrator and either have them adjust your security privileges so that you can do that, or you need to have them do it. Okay, you need to tell them what you're looking for, and hopefully they know how. All right. So assuming that you are an administrator and you do have access, you're going to go ahead and click File, Setup, Database Structures, and that is going to take you into this little database grid. Okay, looks a lot like an Excel spreadsheet. You can kind of drag these little windows and make them a little bit easier on the eyes to really understand. Here, that's usually the first thing I always do when I get into these windows, is I spread those columns out so that I can actually see what they are. Okay, so the first window that pops up is always going to say Database Structure for Names. Okay, remember, Abacus is a database program, right? So it's got different tables that store data. One of those tables is the names table. All right, notice in the bottom left corner, there is a drop down that says Database to Edit. By default, it always takes you into names. But if you need to change that, you can change it over to the Events database or potentially the Matters database. Just, it all depends on what database you're trying to add the field to. Okay, the database that you're trying to add the field to directly correlates to the screen that you're trying to edit. If it's a name screen you're trying to add the field to, then you need to be in the database structures for names. If it's a matters screen, then you're going to be in the database structures for matters. Okay, so we'll stick with names here. And then what you're going to see in the grid is you're going to see a numbers column. You don't really need to worry too much about that. I don't see people mess with that too often, but it will give you a count on how many fields you have in your database structures. But really what you're focused on here is the field name, the display name, and the description, because those are the three columns that'll let you know what the field actually is. Like for instance, day phone. Okay, the name of the field inside of the database structure is day phone. The display name that the user sees on the screen is day phone, and the description that the user sees if they hover their mouse over the field is daytime phone number. Okay, referred by. Okay, referred by, the name of the field in the structure is referred by. The display name is spelled a little bit more grammatically correct for our user, okay, to see. And then the description is who referred them to us, okay? That's the other little thing there. Give me just a sec. I need to update my questions area here. Give me just a second. Okay. So those are the three little columns there, you know, that you're going to take a look at just to see, you know, if you have a field that already exists in the system. Because if you say to yourself, hey, you know, I want to add the shoe size field to my database, okay, you need to come into this list and see, does it actually exist? Okay, so you can sort these different fields, okay, by the sort by drop down. And usually what you're going to do is sort it by name, or maybe sort it by display name, because those tend to be a little bit easier to understand than the actual number. Okay, and then I can just like scroll down or search for, you know, that little section of fields alphabetically, and I can look to see if I already have one called shoe size. Now, as you can tell, I use that example quite often. I got a couple different versions of that. And if I look here, I can see in the type column, it has the letter N, okay? N being the type of field that it is, like it's a numeric field, okay? Numeric field, all right? And then we also have a length there as well, okay? Where you can, you know, see the amount of characters that it allows. So if you're trying to add a field to the actual database, you're going to click the Add button down below, okay? Bottom left corner, third from the left, and you're going to fill in the field properties, the new field properties, okay? You're going to give it a name. You're going to give it a field type, okay? Is it a character field? Is it a, let me just put one in here. I'll call this test 5. How about that? Test 5. I'm going to give this field type, you know, is it a character field? Is it a numeric field? Is it a date field? Is it a logical field? Logical fields are basically check boxes. Think about those as check boxes, right? It's either yes or it's no, it's on or it's off. And then obviously hyperlinks, which you will see on your fields as well, or on your screens, that take you into different records, like maybe a name hyperlink or an address hyperlink or something like that. Character and numeric, very popular. Character is obviously the most popular field type, okay? Then you obviously, you know, you want to give it a field length there. It defaults to 10 automatically. Also give it a display name, something that is going to stand out for your user, and give it a good description, okay? So that way the user knows exactly what to do, okay, with that field. And then once you're done, you just click that done button, and it's going to add that field into your list, okay? And then once you click done again, once you've added your field to your structure, it's going to take you into your little pending changes window, where you're going to click the button that says execute changes and create new databases, all right? And that is essentially how you add the field to the database structure. I'm going to address one comment here inside of the comments that I know not everybody can see, but I just want to get this out of the way. There's a question here about separate databases. So just so you know, this is not, Abacus is not modeled after a relationship style database like SQL, okay? It is a flat file database. So it's a non-relational type of database, which is quite common in programs like this. We do have applications that are obviously SQL backed, but Abacus is not, okay? So yeah, there are separate databases that can be attached, you know, via indexes and things like that. But if you're a database person, Henry, which it seems like your question may allude to you being one, it's not gonna work the same as SQL. So if you have any offline questions about that, feel free to email me. My email address is sheist@abacusnext.com. So back to what we're doing here, okay? We added our field to our list, and we're going to execute changes and create new databases, and that's exactly what it does. It takes our change and it makes it active. Now, since I didn't actually make or add one, I'm just going to click kill changes, all right? And, oh, I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong thing here, kill changes and quit. And then once we've executed, it really just takes us back to our main window. Now we've added that field that we didn't have before to our menu, to our list of fields available. And now I can actually go into our setup menu where I have a user-defined section. Okay, and this is where you get to go in and rearrange your fields on your screens, adjust the layout, add that new field that you created, add that to your screen if you need to. Okay, you just got to choose the section from user-defined screen that you want to edit. So if I want to add that shoe size field to my main screen, then I'm just going to click File, Setup, User-Defined Screens, and then Name. All right, and that takes me into a list of screens for my names. All right, now the original one that I'm going to utilize here, in your program, the default screen for every name record is called Original, just so everybody is aware. All right, now if you try and edit that, it's going to tell you you cannot. Okay, it is the default screen. What you need to do is actually clone that little screen there. You can see I've done it a couple times. That's why I have one called Original 1, Original 2. All right, so you're going to clone that original screen. All right, and you're just going to give it a new ID. Okay, give it a new name. All right, call it Original 3 or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so once you give it a new ID, maybe give it a new description too, just so it stands out for your users and they understand, what it's for. But once you have that in there, now you will be able to, anywhere on this little window, and you can drag this, by the way, to make it a little bigger if you need to. But what you can do now is anywhere in an open space, you can right-click and you can select Add Field. All right? So if I wanted to put my little shoe size field down here below my deer field, I just right-click, select Add Field, and that is going to pull up a list of all of my available fields. All right, that is why I showed you how to add the field first, because if you try and do this step first, you may not have the field that you're wanting to add. Okay, and for anybody who needs to step away from the webinar today, don't worry, we will be providing a recording of the webinar to everybody who registered, so you'll get that in an email within 24 hours. Okay, so feel free to depart if you need to. So again, if I need to add that field that I've created, or really any field, to my screen, just right-click where you want it, select Add Field, choose the field from your list. Okay, you can run a little search there if you need to. All right, and then click Done. And then in this little Properties window, you can add some specific conditions. Now, I'm not going to get into all of these because that would just take a little bit too long. But one thing I will point out is the list box, okay? The list box is a very important little field here if you're wanting to provide, like drop downs for your people to utilize, okay? So you would use, put in a certain list box name there. If you're unfamiliar with how to create list box codes, feel free to email training@abacusnext.com. And let us know, and we can give you, some steps on how to do that. All right, but really what we're looking for here is we're just looking to make sure our field name's correct and that our justification looks right too. Do we want to align left, right, center, so on and so forth. So I'm going to click Done. There's our little shoe size field. Okay, and now we can kind of drag this, to different places on our screen, to maybe align it and make it look a little bit better. All right, but there we go. There's our field on our screen. And you're essentially just going to repeat that process, over and over. Okay, keep in mind, the more fields you add, the bigger your screen is going to have to be, which means you're going to end up with scroll bars, right? Because you're working with a finite amount of space there on a computer monitor. Okay, so don't get too wild with all the fields that you want to put on your screen, especially your contact screen. Okay, those should be relatively simple. Now, your matter screens, I can see how people may want a bunch of different fields. If you look at our PI screens, they're pretty involved. All right, so keep that in mind too when you're doing, your customization. But essentially, that's the process of adding and customizing those screens. okay? Now, I just showed you, a specific, field there, but if you right-click, you can also add text. You can add and text would be something like, up here where it says vendor. You can just add maybe some instructions on the screen, things like that. You can add variable text, which is text that you can kind of just change on the fly. And you can also add different boxes, okay? You can kind of like box in the different fields inside of your, of your screens so that maybe like-minded fields are grouped together and things like that. And you can also add hyperlinks, okay? Hyperlinks are really cool because they will take you back to a different record, okay? I actually strongly urge using hyperlinks because it makes the experience for the user much easier. I'll show you an example of a hyperlink. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this little window. If we go into our matter record again, let me pull up a divorce here. You'll notice, see how I have my hyperlinks right here? That's what those look like when you add those to your custom screens. Okay, so I've got, a field called petitioner name, and I've just got a hyperlink for it. Okay, and when I click that hyperlink, it takes me right into that record, right? It takes me right to it. So it's kind of like a hyperlink, you would use on the internet, right? You click the hyperlink, it takes you to some web page. Same thing here, just takes you to a different record inside of the program, all right? So just to recap real quick before I get into all the questions that we have, okay, first thing you got to ask yourself is, what am I trying to change about these screens? 99% of the time, it's fields that people see on it, from what I've experienced in all my years teaching this program to law firms, okay? And then if that is the case, you need to find out, does the field you're wanting to add exist in the structures? If it does, or to find out, you're just going to go into those database structures, okay, and you're going to take a look. Do you see it in the database structure or not? If you do not, then you're going to add it, like we showed you, all right? Once you have it added, you're going to execute those changes and create those new databases, all right? And that will, make that field a living, breathing field. And then the next step is really just to go into the screen designer, and I always get to it by just going to File, Setup, User-Defined Screens, and choosing what type of screen you're wanting to edit. Okay, so if I was doing this for like a matter screen, maybe I wanted to edit my PI screen to show some additional fields, I can go find my screen called PI, okay, and I can edit that screen. Whenever you're making, edits to screens that you want to keep, always get into the habit of cloning the screen, clone that original screen. Don't edit the one that came with your program, because if you do that and you update your program later on, there's a potential that the changes you made could be overridden if you're not careful when you do your update, okay? Not everybody follows the instructions when the update, when they're performing the update. A lot of people just click next through the update really fast, and they miss a bunch of safety prompts that prevent overriding edits. So to save yourself some trouble, clone the screen and edit the clone, okay? If you want to know which of the tabs you are editing, notice the numbers next to the screen title, the screen ID, okay? PI Vehicle 1, that's tab number 1 on the matter record. PI Vehicle 2, that is the vehicle accident insurance tab. You see how it gives you a little description here? So it shows you, okay, which one you're actually going to be editing. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, let's dive into some questions here. Let's see. Okay, looks like Henry asked a couple. Okay, Henry was the one who asked about the databases. There also was a question here from Henry about dragging and dropping like other programs. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You can drag and drop fields into certain positions on the screens, but you're going to have to be a little bit more specific on what you mean or what area you're talking about dragging and dropping for. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down to some other questions here. What are the plans to overhaul the program? Abacus is constantly being developed, and all of our development ideas usually come from our clients. So if anybody ever has an idea for what they want to see in the program, you can always contact us and make that suggestion. Okay, contact your rep, let them know, hey, I really wish Abacus had this feature. We take all of our client suggestions and we rank them based off of the popularity, and then that is how we build the features into the program. That's how we ended up with a conflict checker. That's how we ended up with our own time and billing system. That all came from client requests. We listen to you, we hear you, and we want to make the program better always. Okay, so unlike some of those other products out there that I see, new Abacus clients coming from, this is not a stagnant development system. This program is always being developed. Okay, we usually do 3 to 4 major releases a year. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, let's see here. How do you add a mouse for different fields into a new field that shows a sum? So Thomas, that is a great question. And basically what Thomas is asking here is, how do I total fields? Okay, and you'll see this a lot in anything that has settlement type information. And that's something we'll talk about offline, Thomas. I will send you some information on that. The reason I'm not going to discuss that on this webinar is that we could talk literally an hour on that. So maybe we'll do a separate webinar on that in the future. But Thomas, for you specifically, I will reach out to you personally and address that with you. Some of your custom screens, by the way, that come with the specialty versions already have that built in. So again, if you are a person who, doesn't want to go through all of the customizing steps, you just want to have it done for you, that's something we can provide. Let's see. Can we delete done and not done status fields in the event screen? So this is a good question because people are on the fence about the done and not done statuses of events, because when you mark something as not done, usually what happens is it removes it from the calendar. Okay, so sometimes people are on the fence about that because they don't want something removed from the calendar if it's marked as completed. Okay, so what I would actually do is, so the short answer is, yeah, you could edit the event screen and remove that field from the event screen. Okay, any field that's on a custom screen can be deleted. Okay, if I go into my user-defined screens again, I'll just pull up a random one. If I don't want a field on the screen, all I have to do is just click on it with my mouse and then hit the delete key on my keyboard, and it will ask me if I want to delete that object. Okay, it doesn't delete it from your database structure, so it's always there. So if you needed to put it back later, that's totally cool. You'll be able to do that, all right? But if you're just wanting to remove that because you want it out of sight, out of mind for your users, that is one way to do it. So you can delete it off of there. Okay, the other option would be to just create like a default rule in your calendar settings that doesn't remove done items from your calendar. But again, it's kind of up to you. If you don't even want the people to see that field on the screen, delete it from the screen. Okay. Good questions, Samantha. Let's see. Does Abacus have a city prosecutor only program? We actually do. So it's just, we just call it prosecutor. But let me see, I might have one in here. Do I? Yeah, right there. So we do have a prosecutor specialty version that comes with intake forms. It comes with pre-customized matter screens, pre-customized name screens, where you can add, witness information, defendant information, all that good stuff. So yeah, what I would suggest for anybody that is really interested in the different specialty versions that we offer, you can actually go to our main webpage, abacusnext.com, and you will see in the top right corner of that web page, there is a little link that says by industry. Okay, so you're basically searching by industry, and in that drop-down menu, you'll see all the different solutions by practice area that we offer. So we do everything from, you know, bankruptcy through, you know, workers' comp, and that includes, you know, prosecutor versions as well. So yeah, please check that out. And again, that's abacusnext.com. Click on the link by industry, and you will see those options there. So another good question here, let's see. Actually, let me back up just one sec. When you change or add fields, does it change only for the specific user or for the whole office? Excellent question. When you make a change to the database structures, it changes it for everyone. And if you, or it adds that field or deletes that field, whatever you're doing, to the database structures for everyone. If you are modifying a screen, if you are customizing a screen in some manner, it is going to affect any person who uses that screen, okay? So potentially, yes, it could affect the entire office. So that being said, maybe I really, really want that shoe size field on my name screen, but you know, the rest of the firm does not. That is why we want to clone. Okay, we can clone our screens, and I can call that screen, you know, Scott's favorite name screen. All right, and now I'm using that specific screen, whereas, you know, the rest of my colleagues are using a different screen for their names. Okay, so always make sure you're cloning when you edit. Great question. How do you identify the screen you are using? That kind of goes along with my last question. So yeah, one kind of goes with the other. So good questions, Joaquin, and good questions, Michael. You know, I addressed Joaquin's question there, and to Michael, to your point, how do you know what screen you're even using? Well, the best way to know is to go into your user preferences. Okay, if you go to File, Setup, User Preferences, there is a tab called Appearance. Okay, the Appearance tab will show you the default screens that you use for any new case or new name contact or new event that you add, okay, to your system. All right, so that's the first place to start. Now, if you have a bunch of different screens for different types of matters, then potentially the screen that you see when you open a matter record, that screen is going to be dependent upon the case code or the file type that is assigned to that case. Because remember in the beginning I said, you know, my PI vehicle screens look different than my divorce screens. So when you look at this here, you know, you're going to, whatever you have up here, that's going to determine the screen that you see when you know, open up that matter record. So you just want to look at that, and that will give you kind of a heads up there on, you know, what screen you're actually looking at. But the best place to look for your defaults, right there under File Setup, User Preferences, go into that Appearance tab, and you can see all of your specific defaults. So notice it says User Preferences for SH. Okay, so this is only affecting me. Good question. All right, I don't see any more questions in there. So let me give it another minute here. Get in your questions now if we can. Let's see, another question here from Samantha. Does every user have to set a certain screen to a certain case code for the program to always use a certain screen on a case? So no, every user does not, okay? That is kind of a global thing, okay? Each user can set their defaults for like a new case. Like for instance, if I go to names and then add a new name, okay, because I'm the one that's creating that new name record, it's gonna use the screen type of whatever I have set in my user preferences under the Appearance tab. So it's gonna use original 1 as my name screen, okay? However, In user-defined screens, if we go back into that section that you will become familiar with, specifically our matter screens, every matter screen can be assigned a case code, okay? That is how the program knows to switch it to a PI screen if it's a PI case, or if it's a immigration case, how to show the immigration screen, okay? So you can assign codes to your screens, okay? And so that way, whenever someone applies a code to a particular matter, the system is smart enough to say, oh, well, they're using the immigration code for that screen, so I'm going to show the immigration record, the immigration layout. So that should answer your question. And that is global. That is global when you assign those case codes to screen types. So good question, Samantha. All right, I'm going to give it one more minute here to get any last minute questions in. And, again, it's, screen customization good, efficient screen customization starts with planning, right? They always say, what is it? Proper planning prevents poor performance, right? Same thing here, right? So don't be afraid to get out a notepad and sketch it out. How do I want my matter screen to look? How do I want my name screen to look? What fields do I require to be happy? I know I'm going to have fields like first name and last name. Right? I know I'm going to have a date of birth field. I know I'm going to have a street address field. But what about all the rest of those, obscure different fields, right, that may not come with our standard program? They may come with our specialty version program, but it may not come with our standard program. Like, for our prosecutor person, right? You may have a field in there for, defendant's height, defendant's weight, defendant's known gang affiliations, defendant's eye color. These are fields that potentially do not come in your program. So you have the power to add them if you know how to do those simple steps that we showed you today. All right, so I don't see any more questions. So we're going to wrap it up there at the 40-minute mark. I hope everybody found this informative. Remember, if you need anything knowledge-related, contact training@abacusnext.com, and we will get you squared away. I appreciate everybody's time today. Don't forget to register for Abacus Max, and the tickets are going very fast, and we're doing a 15% off discount right now through May 15th. So get it now while you can. Thanks, everybody. We'll be sending the recording out shortly. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.